Hello everyone, welcome to the NPC Dungeon. If this is your first time joining us here, hi. On this channel, I give little tips and tricks for running tabletop RPGs like D&D. In this one, we'll be talking about different types of adventures. If you've been with me for a while, you'll know that I usually pick one topic and talk about it for about 5 to 10 minutes, but this video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of just talking about a specific topic, I'm going to briefly go over how I define an adventure, and then just start kind of listing off different types of adventures in a kind of stream of consciousness or more conversational kind of way, and talk about what they are, and a little bit about how I go about doing them for inspiration for you to pull from when you're running your own campaigns. That is in fact the main point of this video, to give you inspiration for your own adventures. I'm pulling a lot of these different types of adventures from a list that I mentioned on a video on plot hooks. If you want, feel free to check that one out. It is the first video that I ever made on this channel, so just be aware that video and audio quality are not the best. It is literally just a static image with me talking, so be aware of that. That being said, this topic is probably going to end up being a series of probably about 4 or 5 parts, and today's is going to cover 4 different types of adventures. This is not an exhaustive list, but I really hope you like it. By the way, if you want, I might even make specific videos about some of these specific types and really zoom in on them in the future. And if you want me to, let me know. But with that massive exposition dump out of the way, let's get started and let's learn something. So first, very briefly, how do I define an adventure? For me, an adventure is any series of events that you plan out for your players to be part of its own little story. Notice that I didn't say quest. Indeed, all quests are adventures, but not all adventures are quests. I like to think of a quest as something that an NPC of some kind sends your players on, but your players might just easily see a dungeon and think, oh, this is cool, and want to explore it, or look for a certain cave because they believe something important either to the story or to one or more of the players might be inside. They might even enter a dungeon looking for work, and the list goes on. There's clearly a lot of gray areas here, and that's one of the reasons why I gave such a broad definition. But now that we have that out of the way, I think that we have enough information to start talking about some more specific types of adventures that you might send your players on. The first one that I want to talk about, and these are in no particular order by the way, is a heist mission. These are usually quests. The group might be summoned by an NPC who wants them to obtain something from somewhere, and where they get it from is really important. Maybe there's a highly guarded area, such as some kind of bank, museum, palace, temple, or what have you. But it doesn't have to be. It could even be something like a dungeon. The latter would probably end up being more like a dungeon crawl kind of adventures. Like I said, there still ends up being a lot of overlap and gray areas in these more specific types of adventures. Now, when I think about a heist, I usually think about the former example. And if you're going to run something like that, where your players are sent to go steal something from a very highly guarded area, I highly recommend giving your players ample information ahead of time. You can flavor this by having an inside NPC with inside information talking to them, maybe the one who sent them on the quest, or maybe they can put them in connection with a contact of some kind. And they can also have time to scout out the place. In fact, they probably should. In the same vein, they need to have time to plan. Don't give them the quest and say that they have by the end of the in-game day to do it or something like that. That probably won't be enough time. I also want to add that whatever caveat or whatever twist you add, whatever encounters you place before your players, whatever story elements you include, and whatever your players discover depends on the specific story that you're trying to tell, but I hope that gives you some ideas. Another thing that typically comes to my mind when talking about a heist mission is the stereotypical NPC who brings them together. This works very well for more criminal underground kinds of campaigns, or campaigns where your players are just adventures for hire, but it doesn't have to be. I'm always on the lookout for ways to subvert these kinds of tropes, and while we're at it, it doesn't even have to be something that your players are called on to do by an NPC. They may just decide that either they like something or need something and just want to steal it. This can work very well for an evil campaign, but in the spirit of subverting cliches, your players may also steal something if it's important evidence they need. Maybe, for example, to clear one of the party members' names if they were falsely accused of some crime and are on the run with the rest of the party, for example. Even better, when the person they have to steal it from is a genuinely good person and they can't just talk to them at the time for whatever reason. Maybe the person's out of town and the party's on some kind of urgent deadline. But there are countless circumstances and contrivances that you can add and use to achieve this or similar effect. But I hope this gives you some inspiration. For a few more examples, you may also say that your players need to steal something of immense power from someone incredibly evil, or that the only way to defeat someone incredibly evil is with a certain item, an item that your players have to steal because the people who have it are unwilling to share. Or maybe the party consider themselves to be generally good, but they're somehow blackmailed by the big bad and have to steal something for them. And since I just listed off a lot of different examples, I want to say that in all these examples, but especially that last one, if your players find some kind of alternative solution, let them try it, and if it works, don't stand in their way. Maybe they can double cross the villain or find some way around stealing from their friend. After all, this is what makes this game so fun. And of course, whatever you do, it depends on the story and the campaign, and especially on your players. Another type of adventure that, mechanically speaking at least, is very similar to a heist mission is a rescue mission. This can have a very similar setup where NPC simply calls them up. They might say, hey, this person's been kidnapped, rescue them please. And again, obviously the reason why they might need to be rescued and where they're rescued from varies depending on your campaign. Maybe they're falsely accused of something and the players need to launch some kind of investigation to find evidence. Or maybe the captive NPC is simply in prison, the players need to break him out. But it doesn't have to be a prison. They may just have simply gotten lost in a cave, or they're simply missing and the players have to investigate. Again, I'll mention that there are a lot of gray areas present in these different types. This is very similar to mysteries, for example, but I'll mention mysteries in a future video in the series, but for now, I have a whole video on them, and I'll leave a link and a card if you want to check that out on your own. The point is that you can really get creative with this, and I hope this provided some inspiration for your own rescue missions. And finally, there are two more types that I want to talk about before I close this video out. And I'm going to lump them together because I think they're very similar and have a lot of very special overlap, even beyond the usual. And they are Bodyguard Missions and Escort Missions. In the former, your players are sent to protect a certain important NPC. Maybe this NPC will be attending a very important meeting or a party, or maybe there are rumors of some kind of future assassination attempts on them, and the players may actually have to be in the house for a while. And you can combine these. The above listed options give some really cool opportunities for all kinds of drama and storytelling, obviously depending on the kind of story that you're trying to tell. And those are just a few examples of how you might do this. Don't be afraid to get creative with it. You might even have them protect someone along a route they're traveling on or escort them. Now you might see how these two overlap so closely. For a few examples, they might be a merchant traveling along a dangerous trade route or a controversial political figure going to an important summit of some kind during some tense time. These can really get interesting. And even then, escort missions don't have to revolve around NPC. You might have your players either escorting a very dangerous or a very valuable object to some place for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't safe where it was at, either because it's being attacked by something, someone wants it, or the area is just unstable for some reason, so they're asked to move it, or maybe it's needed for a certain thing. It's need to be used for something. And in those cases, it's probably more realistic and probably more fun as well to have an NPC tag along with them to keep them on track. And this NPC's personality is completely up to you. Maybe they're a boring stick in the mud, or they're just really bad at their job. Either of these can be really fun and really fun to do, but again, the options are limitless. And of course, none of these necessarily have to be given to them by an NPC. They may just want to protect someone who's important to them or move something that is important for some reason, like I've been saying this whole video. Sometimes these things just naturally come up, and when they do naturally come up, it's important to be ready. When you're running an adventure, pay very close attention to where the story is going and try to predict what your players will do, so that if something like this might naturally come up in the future, if the next adventure might be one of these types, you are ready. But of course, I have a whole video all about ending arcs of your campaign, and one of the major points I mentioned in that video is transitioning to other arcs. So I'll direct you to that one. I'll leave a link in a card if you want to delve into a little bit more detail about that topic. And that's it. Thank you for watching. As always, I really hope that you enjoyed the video and found it useful, and maybe even took a little bit of inspiration from it, as that was the main point of this video after all. Feel free to come back next week, or I'll continue this series with about 4 or 5 more adventure types. And if you'll be notified when that video comes out, feel free to subscribe. If you like the video, feel free to leave a like. It lets me know what I'm doing right so that I can make the best videos I possibly can for you all. You can even leave a comment if you want. I love hearing your comments and almost always respond. Again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, let's learn something.